Hi guys, so in one of my last videos I asked you guys to ask me questions so that I could do a Q&A for you guys to get to know a little bit more about me and ask any questions that you might have. So here are some of the questions that you guys asked me. So the first one is, how old am I? I am 16. That's a pretty short answer. Do I go to school? Currently, I am homeschooled, and I have been homeschooled since 8th grade, and I'm going into 11th grade now. I do attend a homeschool co-op, which I take art class and sign language there. So I am homeschooled, and it is mainly for health reasons. In 8th grade, once my health started to deteriorate, school just became too hard, and I had too many appointments, so homeschooling just works much better for me. On the same topic of school, do I plan to go to college, and what would I go for? I do plan to go to college. My plan is to do it mainly online so that I don't have to get around campus, and I'm planning on living at home. Obviously, circumstances change. I have no idea what my health will look like by the time I get to college. I want to get a degree in business and in advanced canine training. I want to open my own dog training company to train both pets and also be like a consultant and help people train their own service dogs. So I wouldn't fully train them myself. I would, if somebody wanted to own or train a dog but they wanted the help of a trainer, which is very common, I would help people and advise them on training their own service animals. What assistive devices do I use? I have already answered this question in my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome Q&A, which was my very first video. So if you want to know the answer to that question, I will link that video down in the description. And the only things that have changed since then are I've gotten a custom wheelchair, and I don't know if you would count a feeding tube as an assistive device, but if you do, those are the only two things that have been added to that list. Has my feeding tube been helpful? Very much so. I had severe hypoglycemia before, and it was causing some damage on my body from how low my blood sugar was getting and how often. And my blood sugars have been super, for me, they've been very stable. I mean, for a typical person, I think they would still be a little lower than normal, but they've helped with that immensely. And also with my stomach pain, because I have an NJ tube, so it bypasses my stomach. A lot of my symptoms of gastroparesis are much better, and I'm living in less stomach pain, and so I would say that's pretty good. So I'm just going to cover all of the feeding tube questions that I got right now. Is my tube temporary? Well, the NJ tube is temporary, but as of right now, the plan is for me to have a feeding tube for the considerable future. As of right now, it's a permanent thing. We don't know when I won't need one anymore. We don't know if I will ever not need one anymore. That would be awesome, but as of right now, it's a pretty permanent thing. Will I be getting a surgical tube? Yes, I will. We are planning on getting a GJ tube placed in the pretty near future. We're still figuring out exactly when we want to do that, and we're still kind of thinking about that, but yes, I am planning on getting a surgical tube placed. I'm going to be getting a GJ tube. What formula do I use? So while I was in the hospital, they had me on Nourish, which is the pediatric version of Liquid Hope, which was the formula that I was going to be on, but my hospital didn't carry Liquid Hope, they only had Nourish. But they're pretty similar. So when I came home from the hospital, I was on Liquid Hope, which was the formula that we were planning on using. But I already had to dilute it because it's a very, very thick formula, and some of my doctors wanted me to have extra fluid. But I tried it for a while, and it is very gritty because Liquid Hope is like a real food formula, so it's all real food that's blended up, which worked for me because I have a lot of allergies to sugar and dairy, and it just worked out best. So it clogged my tube like 3+ times an hour, and that was miserable. I while I was on the formula, I barely slept because I had to be on 24-hour feeds. And so every time that it would my pump would beep at me saying that my tube was clogged, I had to deal with it no matter what time it was. And it caused so many problems. I almost had to have my tube replaced. I would have to take like 12-hour breaks from feeds because my tube would not unclog. And it was giving me cramping in my intestines, and I wasn't able to get up to my goal rate, and I had just a whole lot of problems with that. I know it works wonderful for a lot of people, but I just wasn't one of those people. So now I'm on Kate Farms Core Essentials, which looks like this. So Kate Farms is another natural feeding tube formula. It is also all real food, but it is much smoother and more like liquidy. There's not a whole bunch, it's not very gritty, whereas Liquid Hope was very gritty. This isn't. It's very smooth, and it hasn't really clogged my tube at all since I've been on it for, I want to say, a week and a half-ish. I think it's going to be a week and a half soon. And I've had no issues with it. I'm now up to my goal rate of feeds, and I'm not having the same cramping that I was with Liquid Hope. And also, it conveniently comes in a bottle, which Liquid Hope did not. It was in a pouch, and like a foil pouch kind of thing. And so you had to like tear it open, and I had to mix it into a measuring cup and then pour in the amount of water and like stir it up and then pour it into the bag. And so if I was on the go, it was really difficult to do. But this, I don't need to mix with water, and all you have to do is just shake it up and pour it in. So even though that's a little reason, it actually is like very nice. So I would recommend Kate Farms to anyone on a feeding tube who wants a natural formula. I would recommend Liquid Hope as well, but for people who have like NJ tubes or NG tubes, something that's smaller, I just found that Liquid Hope couldn't get through that tube. If you have like a surgical tube, like a G tube or a GJ tube, those tubes are wider and shorter, so I feel like those would work really well. But if you have like an NG or an NJ, especially an NJ, and you want a natural formula, I would definitely recommend Kate Farms. Do I use a VOGMASK? So the answer to that question is yes, sometimes I do. And for those of you who don't know what a VOGMASK is, it is kind of like an allergen mask, and it looks like this. So I think there's lots of different brands, but this is the brand that I use, and it's called the VOGMASK. And they come in all sorts of cute styles. I'm going to take this off so you guys can hear me better. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me still. But, so the answer to that question is yes, I do. I have mast cell activation syndrome, which is a very common thing that goes along with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so that causes a lot of allergen responses in my body. And one of those things, one of the biggest things, is smoke. So if I breathe in smoke, my entire airway and chest gets really tight and painful, and it burns as if I'm breathing in fire. So anytime that I'm around smoke, I always have to put that mask on, otherwise it makes me feel very ill. That's typically the only time that I use it. Otherwise, if I'm in a place where there's a lot of dust in the air, that also really irritates my throat and chest, so I also wear it then, but mainly just for smoke. What emergency medical supplies do I carry with me at all times? So I have a medical alert bracelet, and that just lists all of my medical conditions and things that like EMTs or any first responders would need to know about me, or anyone who would find me like unconscious, everything that they would need to know and be careful for. So I carry that. I took my wallet. I bought one of the ones that originally has a phone case, so that you can, it's like a phone case so you can use your phone. And I filled out a little card, so I have that in there, so that if they were to find my wallet, I also have that information in there. I also have, on my iPhone, there's an there's like a medical ID that shows up if you're, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but you can fill out a medical ID on your iPhone, and I did that as well with contact numbers and everything, and once again, all of my information. And my VOGMASK is a part of my emergency kit, just because I never know where I'm going to run into a situation where I would need it. My glucose meter is very important because, as I've mentioned, I have very severe hypoglycemia, so, and it's gotten to the point I don't necessarily feel it all the time, so that's very helpful in case I need to check if I'm low. I also carry a central line emergency kit for my PICC line. I recommend carrying one of those at all times if you have a central line. It has an extra flush, like caps if your cap were to break, alcohol swabs, there's typically like tape in case your dressing starts to fall off, and one of the biggest ones is a clamp. So something that can happen with the central line is sometimes the line will break or tear or burst for no reason. I mean, sometimes there's a reason, but there's not always a reason. Sometimes the tube just gets old and wears out, or it gets pulled on something, and if that happens, if it were to break, you need to clamp off the line between your skin and the like tear or break or whatever. So I always carry a clamp in there for that reason, because that can be very dangerous for infection reasons if you don't have a clamp. So there's a few more things in here, but a central line emergency kit is the last really emergency thing. Oh, and I also carry anti-nausea medicine because I get nauseous a lot and I don't want to throw up in public, and especially now that I have the tube, because if you do throw up, you can actually throw up your tube sometimes, and I do not want to have that replaced because that is not fun. So I always carry nausea medicine with me as well. What are my favorite Netflix shows? I mean, Grey's Anatomy is definitely a big one. I've watched that completely through 3 or 4 times. Currently, I'm rewatching Criminal Minds. I love Criminal Minds. House MD. I like Psych. I've watched Bones. I don't know, I've watched so much on Netflix. I have so many TV shows, but those are kind of some of the ones that I've watched a lot. Who are my favorite music artists? I really like Ariana Grande, Shawn Mendes. I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, but I love his music. I also really like Citizen Way and Lauren Daigle. Those are probably my top 4. Which, funny story, I'll keep it short because this video is already going to be really long. But I actually got to meet Lauren Daigle. Maybe I'll make a video about that some other time. That was a crazy experience, but I kind of got surprised and got to meet Lauren Daigle. So let me know if you're interested in me making that video, because if you guys are interested, I'll make it. And if you don't know who Lauren Daigle is, you should go look her up on Instagram or YouTube. She is an amazing Christian singer. What are things that I do that are like self-care or like things for me that keep me happy? Well, I like to get my nails done. I have acrylic nails, and so something that I do that makes me feel good, makes me happy, is I get my nails done. So I get them done maybe every, I don't know, I get them done as often as I need to, but I have acrylics and I love them. So I get nice colors, and having pretty nails all the time just makes me happy. Like, I always feel just a little bit happier when I have nice nails. Also, I like to do face masks, which can be kind of hard with mast cell, but I like to do them anyways. They make your skin feel so nice. Would I ever want to meet up with any of my chronic illness friends that I've met on social media? Yes, of course I would. I would love to meet up with all of my friends that I've met. And I only dream that I will be able to one day. It's so hard because we don't necessarily live so close. Like, I have friends from other countries, from across the United States. Unfortunately, we live so far away, but if I were ever in the situation where I had the chance to meet them, of course I would love to. What is the hardest thing about having a chronic illness? Well, there's a lot of things that are hard about it. I mean, other than just the pain and all of the medical aspect of it, my biggest one would probably actually be the isolation. Chronic illness has taken so many of my friends from me, and it has taken all of the activities that I used to do and school and everywhere that I would have social time. It's taken almost all of that from me, and so it is very hard to meet with friends, and especially because as my life changes and as I get sicker, my friends don't, and they don't necessarily understand. Some of them do, but they don't necessarily understand. And so I find myself losing more and more and more friends. And that's hard. Why do I have the word hope everywhere? So I'm sure you guys have seen on my end slate it says hope. I wear a bracelet that says hope. I'm trying to get it so you guys can see. I have it everywhere. I have it in so many paintings. I put the word everywhere. And that is because in 2017, everyone makes their New Year's resolutions, and I was like, I can't, I'm not one to make resolutions. I, in 2017, did not make a New Year's resolution. Instead, I picked my word of the year, which at that point in time, I was really struggling. My health was at an all-time low. I was feeling pretty down, and so I chose that in 2017 I was going to choose the word hope as my word of the year, and I was just gonna remember it all the time. And I found that every situation that I'm in, I can never lose hope. I have to remind myself of that, because honestly sometimes the situation can just be so bad that sometimes you find yourself starting to lose hope. And I have just willed myself to never lose hope. I never let myself lose hope, because it is sometimes the only thing that keeps me going. So the next question kind of ties in actually to my last question, is what is my one tip for people with chronic illness? And honestly, it would be to never lose hope, because I can't say always be positive, or because that's not realistic. Not everyone is positive all the time, and if that's what you say to yourself, oh, I need to be positive all the time, then you're just it just makes it harder. So one of my biggest tips for someone with chronic illness would be to always remind yourself that there is hope, that it will get better, or it can get better. And even if it doesn't, just never lose hope, because I say you're struggling with doctors, because let me tell you, that can be so hard. And anyone who's sick knows the struggle of doctors that don't understand. And every time I leave a doctor's appointment frustrated and feeling like it was such a waste, or I had so much, it's just so disappointing, I just have to remind myself that there's hope, there's more doctors, we will get it figured out, and just don't give up, don't give up. It seems like the easiest thing is just to give up, but I can tell you, it's it might be hard to force yourself to have hope and keep going, but it's worth it. It's so hard for me to get this message across, because it's hard for me to put it into words, but just don't lose hope. That is my biggest thing, is just don't lose hope and don't give up. My other tip would be chronic illness. A lot of times, especially if you weren't born with it, or even if you were but it's progressive, if you find that chronic illness takes things from you. So I used to dance and sing. I was in show choir, And I watched my sister grow up in that program, and I finally got to the competition level in high school, and I had to stop. And that was so devastating. Like, I spent so many times crying my eyes out because I lost something that important to me. And I had to stop figure skating. I had to stop going to school. I had to drop out of my very last class with my friends in public school, which was choir. And I found that chronic illness has taken a lot from me. But it took me so long just to figure out, just to accept that. To accept that I am not the same person that I was before I got sick. And I cannot do the same things that I could before. And I'm not expected to. And that's okay. Like, it is okay that your life is different. And as soon as I accepted that and just accepted the new person that I am and just embraced what I could do and not what I couldn't do, I got a lot happier, and I stopped being so sad all the time. And yes, every time I hear music or I see some of those friends and I see the pictures that they post of the show choir and their trips, I get sad. And I describe it like this. I had that wound, and letting it go and just accepting my reality helped heal that wound. But there's scar tissue. It's never going to go away. There will always be some scar tissue there. But I became such a happier person once I just accepted my new reality and stopped trying to force myself to do the things that I couldn't and being sad about the things that I couldn't, because there's no use in living your life sad about what you can't do. Just be happy about what you can do, because everyone can do something. I just had to remind myself that there are things that I can do. There is something that everyone can do. And even though you can't do everything, you can still do something. And you just need to focus on that, not the things that you can't do, which it's very easy to say. It is very hard to do. And it took me years, but that is my other tip, because it made me such a happier person. And it was so much easier to accept my reality once I did that and once I let go. And then the final and most asked question is, do I have a social media account that you guys can follow me on? So in the past, I've mentioned my Instagram account and people that I've met over Instagram and everything like that. So I've gotten mainly questions on, what's your Instagram? Do you have an Instagram? Like, stuff like that. And the answer is yes. The Instagram that I use most often is a private Instagram that I mainly stay in contact with close friends and family. And I won't link that Instagram. That's not my public account, and I mainly use that one for close friends and family. But because I got so many questions, I created another Instagram account called Life with Stripes, and I will put the link right here. Yes, I now do have an Instagram that you guys can follow me on and message me or anything that you want, or just keep updated. So that has been the most asked question, and I've kind of avoided it because the Instagram that I do have is my private account that I just talk with friends and family on, and I didn't want to share that account with everyone. So after a few months of being asked this question, I created an Instagram account that all of you guys could keep in contact with me through. There you go, that was my Get to Know Me Q&A. I feel like all of my videos have been mainly about one specific medical thing, and I wanted to do a video where you guys could get to know me a little bit better, and just a sit-down video. Well, all of my videos are sit-down videos, but a video where I could sit down and tell you a little bit more about me and answer the questions that you guys have been asking. And as always, if you have any other videos that you'd like me to make or any video requests, comment them down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe and go check out my new Instagram. and I will see you guys next time. Bye!